Hello, everyone, and welcome to Revival Fire Online. This is Apostle Marsha Pedro, and if you are on Facebook right now, why don't you go ahead and like and share this broadcast? If you are on YouTube, why don't you go ahead and subscribe to our channel, and you can press the notification button so that you will get notified every single time that we post content, and it is frequent, it's every week. Now, this evening, I want to speak to us about our wilderness season. I need to do a disclaimer before. I am not a melancholy pastor. I am not a melancholy person, but I am just sensing what the Lord wants to say to us. And if you would have gone back in my other videos, I spoke about your hidden season. Last week I spoke about your hiding season, the video before, and this week I'm going to speak about your wilderness season. I know many of us have been going through a wilderness, and many of you will be going through a wilderness, and I am saying to you, don't waste your wilderness season. Yes, don't waste your wilderness season. Today, I'm going to tell you how you can maximize on your wilderness season. And I would just give you some advice, some tips on what God expects of you and what He wants to give to you in your wilderness season. Ever so often I personally engage in some activity, and then I sit at the end of it and I say, wow, I should have done something differently. And if you're one of those people who look back after the thing is finished, after the activity is finished, and say, hey, I really should have done this differently. I should have rested more. Recently I went on a mini vacation with my family, and I was so tired. I was so sleepy. And I said, if only I had rested more, if only I had slept more, I would have had more time with my family. I would have eaten some of my mother's food, some more of my mother's food. I would have enjoyed it. And you see, it's the same thing in life, and it's the same thing with the seasons of God. Many of us have not maximized on God's season in our lives because, and there are many reasons why we have not maximized. Just like me going on my little mini vacation, we have failed to prepare. Yes, we have failed to prepare. We have failed to acknowledge the season. So one of the reasons we have not maximized on the season is because we have failed to prepare for the season. We have failed to even acknowledge the season. Or another reason that we're not maximizing on the seasons, and especially the wilderness season, is because we are so caught up in the flesh that we just don't have a gauge on our spiritual temperature. Let me give you, this is something that I'm using a lot, terminology that I'm using a lot. Your spiritual temperature. It's just that ability to stop our body, meaning to just still our soul, to still our body, to sit or to lie down, to stop our mind from thinking of all the arbitrary thoughts and all the things that are going through our mind, and to just take a temperature, just take a status of where am I in my spiritual walk with God. And that's a spiritual temperature. Spiritual temperature, maybe I would minister on that some other time, but it's important that we take a spiritual temperature. So, as I said, we have not maximized on the seasons because we have failed to prepare, or we have failed to acknowledge, or we have just been so caught up in the flesh. The wilderness season, so we're going into the message now, the wilderness season. And if you think that you're going through a wilderness season, just show me some emojis, or just drop a comment below and say, hey, Apostle Marsha, I'm going through a wilderness. Hey, thank you for this word today. Hey, I look forward to, or if you know someone who's going through a wilderness season right now and you think that they really need to hear this word, it's not too late. You can go ahead and share. Now, the wilderness season is a time that has been overlooked by many in Christendom. Yeah, Many in Christendom and myself in years gone by, I have overlooked it. It is something that there is such a negative connotation attached to the process of pruning, to the process of sanctification and separation. So there has been such a negative connotation that we have overlooked it or we've scoffed at it. But I want you to know tonight is that you need to embrace this wilderness and get the max out of it. Get the maximum out of each season in your life. So what exactly is your wilderness? So I want to create some foundation. We're going to do some formation. I'm going to share some stories. So sit back and enjoy this evening. What exactly is your wilderness? Matthew 3:16 speaks of it, and I'm a word girl. I always go back into the word and I bring the word to you, okay? Matthew 3:16 says, and Jesus, our very own Jesus, our very own big brother Jesus, when he was baptized, so he had a wonderful time. Think of your baptism. Think of that wonderful encounter you have had with the Lord, and you got baptized. Well, in my case, I got saved, and then I said, hey, I want to get baptized. I got baptized. He went up straight away out of the water, and lo, the heavens were opened unto him, and he saw the Spirit of God descending like a dove and lightning upon him. And lo, a voice from heaven saying, this is my beloved Son, in whom I am well pleased. So it sounded as if he was having a good time, okay? So he got baptized by John the Baptist. He went up, he came out of the water, he looked up, he saw the dove, and it was lightning and all of those wonderful things, and the Lord spoke. So I mean, come on, what better encounter? What better encounter? It's like, wow, heaven, it's like awesome. And then in Matthew chapter 4 verse 1, so we just flip the page, right? Chapter 4 verse 1, and then was Jesus led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. So we hear wilderness now. He was led up of the Spirit. So this was not the devil. This was not the disciples. This was not John. He was led up of the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted of the devil. Your wilderness is the season of your life when God takes you through a time of refining. And even, even when I speak on my broadcast, I speak in the Spirit, and I'm speaking to someone, I'm speaking to your spirit man, and you're getting a leaping in your spirit, and you're feeling that, this is a good time. This is a good season. Your wilderness is the season of your life when God takes you through a time of refining. These are the years when God reconstructs and realigns your character with your calling. Yeah? Many have the misconception that the wilderness seasons are because of some sin. I want you to know that is a misconception. Your wilderness is not because you have sinned. If you think the thing that you are going through now is because you've done some sin or whatever, then you need to talk to God and say, God, what's going on here? You need to reconcile with him, and then everything he's going to show you, make your path clear. But if you think that you're going through a wilderness, a season of refining, and if you think that it's because you've committed a sin or you've done something wrong, that's far from the truth. So many have the misconception that wilderness seasons are because of some sin. This is a great lie, as God is the one who orchestrates these seasons. So God orchestrates a wilderness season, and they're actually based on your obedience thus far to the calling in your life. Your wilderness season are orchestrated by God, and they are actually because of your obedience thus far to the calling on your life. I want you to know that if you are a pastor, if you are a politician, if you are a hairdresser, if you are a worship leader, if you are a full-time mommy, if you are a full-time daddy, whatever you are, you will go through a wilderness. You will go through, especially for those of us who are pastors. I really sense in this season that, and when I say pastors, I mean whatever call of the fivefold you are called to, okay? I really sense that there are some pastors who are looking on at me, and you've been feeling as if your church has gone through that season of processing and refining. I want to tell you that you are not alone. There are more of us out there. We're all going through a refining. We're going through a processing. The devil does not orchestrate your wilderness, and he can only get involved with God's permission. Remember the story of Job? The devil does not have the authorization to orchestrate. He does not, unless God says you can touch her. You can touch Marsha. You can touch Esther. You can touch Harry. You can touch Sherry Ann. You can touch Christopher. That is only when the devil can get involved. He does not orchestrate. Another myth about a wilderness season is that you can only go through a wilderness once in your life. No. God orchestrates wilderness seasons whenever our souls have seemed to digress, but our spirit is still yearning. So there are many times that God will orchestrate a wilderness. There are different conditions under which He'll orchestrate. So let me share some with you very quickly. Whenever your soul seems to have digressed, sometimes we get caught up in our souls. You know, our mind, emotions, our will. We get so caught up, but our spirit still has that yearning. We still have that purity of spirit, that yearning for God. He orchestrates a wilderness. God orchestrates a wilderness season when He wishes to promote us. He orchestrates a wilderness season when He wishes to promote us. These seasons are as many or as few, as far apart or as close as God desires. So our wilderness seasons are not as a result of a sin, and they are not just once. They don't just occur once in our lives. They are as many as God chooses, and as few or far apart or close to each other as God chooses. And yes, we are to wear a smile, because today I'm going to educate you, and I am going to teach you how I have been embracing, how I've embraced some in the past. I've made some mistakes in the past too, yes. We all make mistakes. I'm just one of those who will tell you that I've made the mistakes, and I try to be as vulnerable as I can be and enlighten you and show you where you cannot make those mistakes. So, what are the benefits of the wilderness? What are the benefits of the wilderness? 1, flesh is replaced with desire. In our wilderness season, flesh is replaced with desire. A person only realizes that their passion has waned when it is running very low. Let me tell you something. We only realize that passion is gone. We don't realize what passion is gone when 2 notches have gone, when we because passion is something that tends to stay aflame when it's fed. But when it wanes, we don't notice, because we have this false sense of confidence. It's called flesh. So a person only realizes that their passion has waned when it is running very low. Think of your marriage. Think of your passion for exercise. I'm speaking to myself. Think of your passion for whatever you're passionate about. It does not have to just be the secular thing. It's the word of God or your prayer. Passion, we only realize that it has waned when it's running very low. The wilderness strips away our sense of self. It strips away the sense of self. It strips away the flesh. When you listen to Apostle Brent's preaching, my husband, you will hear him speak about death to self. The wilderness strips away our sense of self. It strips away our selfish ambition. Listen to me. I never knew I had so much selfish ambition until I came into this last wilderness season that I'm still in. It takes away our selfish ambition, it takes away our selfish desire, and our selfish strongholds. There are some strongholds in our lives that are because of self gratification. The wilderness takes away. Flesh is replaced with desire and desire for God. Have you ever noticed how you crave the presence of God when you are in a wilderness? Just giving you a minute to think about it. You can continue putting those emojis. Have you ever noticed how you crave the presence of God when you are in a wilderness? Pursuit of presence and a hunger for holiness are two things that we must harness while we are in the wilderness. I'm going to repeat that because it's really, really important. You see, the wilderness are considered like our downtime, and I don't want to run into my other points, but we must harness these things. We must replace our flesh with a hunger for the things of God in the wilderness. Pursuit of presence. When I say pursuit of presence, understand when you are pursuing someone, when you are courting them, when the police is pursuing the perpetrator, when the police is pursuing the bandit, when the police is pursuing I don't know, the armed vehicle, whatever. Pursuit is not something that is done casually. Pursuit is not something that is done carelessly. Pursuit is not something that is done in a lackluster manner. Pursuit for his presence is done with energy. There must be energy. Pursuit of presence and hunger for holiness are two things that we must harness in the wilderness. And when I say harness, I mean hold on to those things. You know, when in the olden days, I know there were more carts and horses and you know, in some countries we still have that, you know, animals, and you hold on to the reins and you just get a firm grasp. And in this season, we need to harness these things. You know, Psalm 63:1 says, O God, thou art my God. Early will I seek thee. My soul thirsteth for thee. My flesh longeth. My flesh, can you imagine? My flesh longeth for thee in a dry and thirsty land where no water is. To thee, to see thy power and thy glory, so as I have seen thee in the sanctuary. David was in a spiritual and physical wilderness as he wrote this. David was in a physical and spiritual wilderness as he wrote this. For those of us who are feeling that we have been in an extended wilderness, it is because God wants us to have only one hunger, and that is for him. That is for him. So one of the benefits, one of the things that we need to really, really hone into, and the things that I'm going to tell you about and the tips that I'm going to give you is what I would like you to do, and what I have done in past wilderness seasons. I have formed habits of these things. I have formed habits of these things in the days when you don't have as much ministry, and the days when you don't have the distractions, and God is taking you through this wilderness. Form habits. David said, early in the morning I will seek thee. That was just David. There are some of us who choose to do it early in the morning, or we choose to do it first thing in the day, but form habits. It's really important in our wilderness season that we form habits out of the things that God is he is replacing, out of the things that he is cultivating. We don't just take an encounter, but we form a habit out of these things. The other thing that the other benefits of the wilderness, the other lessons that he wants us to learn is we see ourselves through the magnification of the Spirit. We see our true selves in the wilderness. We are tested. The wilderness is a time of testing. We are tested. And I'm going to read from you each point. I'm going to give you as much as I can. I'm going to give you as much word as I can. But you need to follow up and really do the study of this thing so that the engrafted word can be a part of you. And let me tell you something. Each wilderness is developing a new set of traits, a new set of beliefs. Each wilderness is taking something new, taking taking us to a new level. And I do not want God to have to repeat a wilderness season where he could have taken out the habits of being lazy and the habit of cursing and the habit of being a gossiper in me. I don't want God to have to continue repeating. He will if he has to, but I want to learn my lesson in this wilderness, and I want to grow and experience other things in my next season of wilderness. And Deuteronomy 8:2 says, and thou shalt, and the Lord is speaking, Jehovah is speaking, and thou shalt remember all the way which the Lord thy God led thee these 40 years in the wilderness to humble thee. The wilderness is a period of making you humble, to humble thee and prove thee. So he's showing you what's inside of you, to know what is in your heart, whether thou would keep his commandments or not. Understand, thou shalt remember all the ways which the Lord thy God led thee these 40 years in the wilderness to humble thee. So he's humbling you. It's not about God, it's about you, my brother and my sister. It is about you, and to prove you, and to prove you, to know what was in your heart. God already knows what's in my heart. God knows, but he wants me to know what's in my heart. And he humbled thee and suffered thee to hunger and fed thee with manna, which thou knewest not, neither did thy fathers know, that he might make thee know that man doth not live by bread only, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of the Lord doth man live. In the wilderness, our true motives for serving God are revealed. Listen to me. Our true motives for serving God are revealed. This is the time when the ministry is taken away from us. The wilderness strips away the extrinsic motivation for serving God, and even his love and presence can seem far away. I remember there was a season in my life. There was a season in my life it was for years. I remember I'd gone into this place and I was quickly elevated in position. I was quickly elevated in a position, and I was in a certain ministry team, and very quickly I was there, and the giftings on my life were used, and I was respected, or I felt I was respected. And I did ministry, and I was taught certain things, and then suddenly it was all removed. It was all removed. And I went through this for maybe 4 to 5 years. I went through this, and I was constantly bullied. I was constantly manipulated. And after I got through all of this, I said to God, and understand, there was no ministry. There was no ministry. So it was as if one day I was up there prophesying, I was praying, I was doing all that, and then the next day I did nothing. There was no ministry. I was not allowed to, interact with the others and be as freely as I could. And what did I do? How did I respond? Because again, your real motive is exposed in this season. Do you know what I did? I got dressed every single Sunday morning, and every single time there was service, I got dressed, and It was a very humiliating because it hurt my flesh. It was a humiliating experience. And the things that were done to me it was not doctrinal, it was not accurate, but I took my lesson from my wilderness. I got dressed and I sat in the same seat as I sat. I interacted and I went to church. I did not stay away from church. I did not stay away from giving. I did not lose honor for those in authority. I continued. And many years after, after I had gone through that and the Lord had released me from that season and He had delivered me from some things, I said to Him, and I asked Him a couple times and He eventually responded. It didn't take much asking. I said, God, that season really hurt me, and You are the God of everything. You are the magnanimous God. You are the all-knowing, all-powerful, all everything God. And my heart and my love and my passion and my life is for You. Why did You allow it? Why did You allow it to happen? And He said one of the most precious things that He has ever said to me in my life. He said, Marsha, I allowed it because I knew that Your love towards me. He said, I knew that Your heart towards me would never change. And I'm here to tell you tonight, let your wilderness be the place where your love for Jesus, where your love for the saints of God, pastor, apostle, prophet, deacon, seamstress, politician, hairdresser, taxi driver, let this wilderness season be the season where your love for Jesus is proven and tested and cemented. Because in your wilderness is where you will be tested. So in your wilderness, we see ourselves through the magnification of the Spirit. We are tested. We are humbled in our wilderness. And as I said, He simply responded that He knew that my love towards Him would not change. And all I had in those years, and I'm giving you another tip, another life tip. All I had in those years, as I said, I continued going to church. I continued being very prompt. I never missed Bible study. I never missed church unless it was extremely. I continued being accountable, and all I had was my worship unto God. I gave Him all. I wept, and all I had was my tears. Okay, another benefit of this season, another thing that I want you to not waste. In your wilderness, sonship is cemented and identity is affirmed. Sonship is cemented. Hey, it's not sonship I love my family. I love my father's name. I'm not going to call the name. I love that family name. I love my husband. I love his family name. It's not about my maiden family name or my married family name. It's about my son, me being a son of the Most High God. In the wilderness, we have no ministry to give. We have no money to sow. And we have no revelation. And I'm going to continue speaking a little about my experiences in that season. All we can ever be in the wilderness is dependent on our Father. All we can ever be in that season is dependent on our Father. Insecurity in our identity is revealed in the wilderness. Insecurity in our own identity is revealed in the wilderness. And let me tell you what happens in the wilderness, okay? The devil seeks a window of vulnerability to exploit our identity gaps. The devil seeks a window of vulnerability to exploit our identity. And when I say identity gaps, I mean, the little places where we feel that we're not so good, we can't sing so well, Jesus doesn't love us because we smoked before we or because we commit adultery once, those places where we have a gap in our identity, where we don't feel so confident. The devil looks in the wilderness. The devil seeks a window of vulnerability to exploit our identity gaps. If your foundation can be shaken, then you will not be able to stand on the platform of ministry. Even Jesus was tempted. So your sonship is cemented. You see, we do not do ministry. I don't come on here every Friday or every time you listen. I don't do videos, and I don't pray and prophesy for you. And when you call me or you come to my church, I don't do it because I want fame, I want glory. I do it because I love Jesus. I love you, I love my viewers, and I love my church, and I love my family, but my primary reason is because I am a son of the Most High God. And this is what we do as sons of the Most High God. You see, even Jesus was tempted. Matthew chapter 4, verses 3-6. And when the tempter came to him, he said, "If thou be the Son of God, command these stones to be made to bread." But he answered and said, "It is written, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceedeth out of the mouth of God." When the devil then the devil took him up to the holy city, and set him on a pinnacle of the temple, and said unto him, "If thou be the Son of God, cast thyself down, for it is written, He shall give his angels charge concerning thee, and in their hands they shall bear thee up, lest at any time thou dash thy foot against a stone." Let me tell you something. In those years of my life, and even in this season, my sonship in the Most High God, my identity is being affirmed. And you don't need a platform, you don't need a bigger service to demonstrate the love of Jesus. In your wilderness season, your identity will be affirmed. Another thing, another benefit of your wilderness season is the time of rest, rejuvenation, and wisdom. In Mark 6:30, we hear, "The apostles gathered themselves together unto Jesus and told him all things." People were continuing to pursue them, both what they had done and what they had taught. And Jesus said unto them, "Come ye yourselves apart into a desert place and rest a while." For there were many coming and going, and they had no leisure so much as to eat. God has orchestrated places of wilderness, whether figurative or not, so that we can rest and hear his voice. In this season, God has orchestrated so that you can understand, you can know, you can hear and distinguish his voice. In the scripture, Jesus and the disciples were forced to delay their rest because the people were only coming after them, and they had planned to go to a place, Jesus and the disciples, and the people got there before them, so they did not have that time to rest. Notwithstanding, he still told them to rest. Although the people got there before him, he said rest. In this season, I have personally learned that rest does the human body, soul, and spirit much good. In a place of wilderness, we are not consumed with our next sermon. And I'm speaking, as I said, I really feel it heavily that I'm also speaking to some heads of ministries, some pastors, some apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some school principals. I'm speaking to you. In a place of wilderness, we are not consumed with our next sermon, but rather we are caught up in our next encounter with him. We are not consumed with our next sermon, but rather we are caught up in our next encounter with him. Resting brings back delight in the pursuit of God. And you know, I always share my books. I always share books that I've read with you. Tommy Tenney has he has two wonderful books. He has many, many, many beautiful books. But he has two wonderful books, God Chasers and God Catchers. And those books are wonderful books that can help cultivate that pursuit of God in your resting wilderness. In your resting wilderness. So those are two books you can read. So in your wilderness season, it's a time that you need to get that rest, rejuvenation, and wisdom. Another point is the wilderness season is a place of restoration. What happens in the wilderness? Restoration. Hosea 2:14 says, I'm going to read 14 and 15. Therefore, behold, I will allure her and bring her into the wilderness. Again, we speak of the word speaks of wilderness. Bring her into the wilderness and speak how comfortably to her. And I will give her vineyards from thence, and the valley of Achor for a door of hope, and she shall sing there as in the days of her youth, and as in the day when she came up out of the land of Egypt. Let me tell you something. Despite whatever the devil has whispered in your ears, your wilderness season is not your season of wandering from here to there to there to the other. What is God saying? What is God doing? What's going to happen? That's not your wilderness season. Before a big building is established, a builder must dig a huge hole in the ground and prepare a foundation. That's your wilderness season. A place of God digging out all the things. The greater the structure is, the deeper the hole. In the wilderness, God digs away at the sin in our lives, and He cleanses us with His truth. So this is what happens in the wilderness. God is digging away at the sin in our lives, and He cleanses us with His truth. He cleanses us with His truth, and He restores. He restores all the things that were stolen from us, and He sets us on a good foundation. God digs away at the sin in our lives, and He cleanses us with His truth. Listen to me. We all have some sin in our lives. We all have some sin. Each of us, there is something. And you know what? The blood of Jesus cleanses us. And the Bible clearly says Jesus is going to present the church. And when He presents the church, we are going to be presented by Him without spot and wrinkle. He does that. He does that cleansing. He fixes it, and He makes it whole, and He makes us brand new. So your wilderness season, He's going to take off those mindsets. He's going to take out those things that have been eroding our foundation. In the wilderness, God will allow the cleansing fire to burn the dross, and He will return to you all that was stolen. And my last, very, very, very last point, finally now, your wilderness season is your season of preparation. Preparation. God is preparing you for the platform. Isaiah 40, the voice of him that, Isaiah 43, the voice of him that cried in the wilderness, prepare ye the way of the Lord. Make straight in the desert a highway for our God. Every valley, every wilderness, every valley shall be exalted, and every mountain and hill shall be made low. And the crooked shall be made straight, and the rough places plain. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord hath spoken it. Many of us long for the powerful ministry of the Holy Spirit to flow through us. I do. Whether it is in the church services with much healing and miracles, or whether it's in a boardroom with much contracts and influence. With great power always comes much preparation. In the wilderness, We learn that the only true power comes from Him and no other. In the wilderness, we also learn that His presence is more important than success and recognition. God is preparing you for the thing that He has created you to do. Be patient and get prepared while you wait in your wilderness. Next week, I'm going to continue and I'm going to speak about the errors that we make in our wilderness, and I want you to come on, listen to my next video, listen to the next broadcast, because it will be as equally informative and instructive. Until my next video, this is Apostle Marsha Pedro saying to you, remember, God did not put you in this season to merely survive. He put you in this season to thrive.